My name is Carlos Regalado Figueroa. I'm a student at Cal State LA doing my Master's in Latin American Studies, and I'm here with
Jorge Diaz, trainer and owner of Flash Enterprises Boxing Academy.
All right, I'm here with Coach. We're here for our part 2. In this oral history, we'll be talking about his life as a trainer and what it's like managing the gym here, being with the guys, with the amateurs, with the pros, and even with people who want to come train. So, you ready, George?
Yes, I'm ready.
All right, so if you could tell me about your training history, when did you start training people? When did you decide to start training people? Why?
I started training before I trained professionally at 16. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed training people. I started first working I was kind of like, parents don't know. I used to ditch class and I'll go to the gym.
Yeah.
To Joe Goose and Tay Goose.
Yeah.
To train over there, I used to be around with my former trainer Josie, and he used to work with a couple fighters at the time, and then like guys like fighters like Joel Castamayor was there, Ben Tacky, and others. I forgot, there was other fighters around there, but those were the guys that I remember the most. So I will kind of be the assistant trainer with my former trainer. So that's I'll just go to the gym, kind of be like wiping them down, checking out what if Joe was training Joel Casamayor or my trainer working with Bentaki or whoever he was working with, and see and listen to them what they were giving them instructions. That's how I enjoyed it, and I just like my whole thing. It was I used to like being in the gym. The gym was to get away from reality for me.
And you were still fighting at the time when you started training?
Yeah, I was an amateur.
Oh, okay.
I was an amateur.
Yeah.
Just I didn't train.
Yeah.
I wasn't professional yet. I was professionally at 19 years old, but that was because that was like 6 months out of high school.
Were you getting paid?
To work with them? No,
Yeah,
I wasn't.
no.
I'm just doing
You just doing fun?
I just like being at the gym.
Nice. Okay. And when did you decide to actually start taking it serious?
That's when actually my trainer went out to camp for Bentaki. He was out, I think, in Texas. I think they were getting ready to fight. I think a fighter named David Reed. I think it was with Bentaki that won the spectacular. It was Ray Oliveira. I think that was one of the fights that was most thrown fights in history at that particular time that I remember. So he was in camp with Bentaki and getting ready for 2 fights. I forgot the first fighter that Bentaki knocked out. It was a very dangerous fighter, and then Ray Oliveira. So Jim was basically left alone, and my trainer Jesse gave me a key, and then the clients that he trained, I kind of took over. And then that's when I started working with kids. I had a couple adults, but I think the adults, they weren't really paying a lot of money, but they were paying me for the week, and then I started getting into it with training the kids. Because that was basically my learning curve, because you got to work with somebody who you're more intellectually, you actually know a little bit more. Because I didn't know how these people that were working with him as adults, I didn't know that. I knew they were throwing punches. A couple of them I know they were just working people, but they just were trying to get a workout. And then the kids, I was trying to practice whatever they practice on training with the fighters. I kind of took it amongst me and started doing it with the kids. And I started doing it. I also teaching what my dad used to teach us. So when we first started boxing, so that was kind of like the mix in. If I was I started training people at 16. Most of the kids were they had to be 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 years old. Maybe a couple kids that were under 15. Maybe the oldest kid that I trained at that particular time. But that was about it, really. It was an enjoyable time, and I was working as a trainer before I turned professional as well. So. It was just another way to make somewhat of a living, I'm gonna say, because I was getting paid, but I wasn't making a lot of money. I was probably averaging $150, $200 a week at that time, though.
When you were training kids, what was that experience like? Transitioning from fighting and all this adrenaline to then trying to teach kids? Was it like a waiver?
The thing is, I wasn't. The easy part was I wasn't training. I was teaching them how to box and quote unquote fight, but I wasn't putting them in competitions.
Okay.
See, I started. That was years later when I started putting kids on the competition. Now that becomes another reality check. Like I said, right when I left Joe's gym, professional. I had a few fights, and then we landed on another gym. Another guy, he's still around. He hired me. I started working for him. I would probably work for him for another 2 years. I started interacting more with different people. I was still training people to fight, to box. A couple of them I used to put them to spar each other. I had more teenagers. Remember I was a little older, so I was like, I think 19, 20, 21. That's when I was interacted more with different ages now. It wasn't only kids. So the whole thing, if we were teaching them how to box and spar. Clients would just come in to work out, learning the technique. We were kind of giving them, like one of my former clients used to tell me, you give them an experience. So that's basically how I'm giving them an experience of boxing. Even though I always say, I don't know if I said it before, but I always say to myself, I'm not a fitness coach. I'm a boxing trainer. I'm going to teach you how to box. Yeah, the physical aspect comes with it, but I don't focus on the physical aspect. Like, I'm not going to be a guy that's going to worry about how your abs look or how your physique or how your traps, your biceps. I'm not that guy. So that wasn't really something you naturally just get in shape. Natural as a fighter. So, and that was basically how I started learning more and interact with people. Because I remember in other interviews we had, I was not the most sociable. So that kind of helped me be more sociable. So I started being more sociable. Even at the same time that I was working as a trainer, remember I was fighting professionally, so that was kind of like the aura that people like to be around. That, you're being trained by a professional fighter. Wow. So I think that's what the magnetic thing that brought us the people. Like when you're fighting, everyone wants to be around you because you're a fighter. You're inspiration. You're inspiring people to do something that they want to do if they're younger than you, or they wish they could have done it if they're older than you. So that's probably the only inspiration. People want to be around people that they're different from you. And when I say different, like they look at you kind of like an idol, kind of like somebody to look up to. Is that inspiration or to rise to be something similar to you if you're that person. So the training part was always enjoyable. I think kids, I went to and kids and adults is something I enjoy. If it's not that you're trying to fight, I like the aspect that you're willing to learn. Generations have changed in the last 27 years that I've been involved in this. So parenting is also another thing that I'm gonna say criticize, because sometimes parents think that sport is too violent. But yeah, that's the only thing. And then that was when I wasn't really, these people, I was not training them to fight. I would just teach them basically just to learn how to basically, you could say, defend yourself, but also spar, work with each other. Even though there were times that we were doing hard sparring, but it wasn't to the point that they were competing. So, yeah.
And when you say like generations have changed, like can you go deeper into that? What do you mean by that?
In the last 28 years, it's been 20 years now that I've been training people now. Maybe even long. Yeah, 20 years. It's been 28 years. But I think people were willing to get dirty, meaning when I say dirty, when you're willing to get dirty, like kids were able to go outside, get dirty, play around, play ball, do other sports. Now it's like they want your kid like you have a scratch in your arm. You're like what? They over protected over. I'm gonna say over baby little things that back then when I was growing up it happened every day. You got a scrape, you get a bandage. You fell, oh well, fortunately knock on wood, I've never broken a bone in my body. Not, I'm gonna take that back. I forgot I had my nose fractured, but I've never, as a kid, I didn't never broken a bone until I fractured my nose and my rib. But so everybody was always injured. So they were skating, bicycle, soccer, football, basketball, boxing. You can say boxing, but that was not really as exposed to the world as it is now. But yeah, just now parents are overprotective now. I think society has gone very weak. In my view, I blame parenting. Because a lot of the parents are basically around my age, maybe older, but they think that this could be violent. They think this is something that, we don't want our kids to get brain damage. No matter what you do in life, you're gonna get injured. You get run over by a car, and you're not doing anything athletic. That's something that could happen tragically. So, or an injury. So, everybody looks boxing as a violence. Yeah, you can say it's violent, but it's it's more discipline, it's more of self-control. You rather have your kid be in the street, grow up in certain neighborhood and be in danger in those aspects that basically you could lose a life, or you could be in something that you could be very productive, become a better person. Disciplines is involved, you learn something and then you could do something with it. So it doesn't mean you have to, everybody that does this sport needs to be a fighter. But remember, the petty thieves, everything. Like, they used to have a program out here called the Jeopardy program. They were the police officers. They used to get kids involved in these gyms that basically keep kids. They were troubled. They kept them going positively, and then they had actual people teach them how to box. But those are things that are dying out. Even in my opinion, I think even the government should do something to help out boxing gyms, because we are the source to keep kids active in and I'm not just saying boxing. I think any sport is something to keep kids active, keep going, and in a positive way, because culturally right now we have a lot of bad influences in society, social media, the media. We don't have idols. I don't see idols that we can look up and we want to be like how I grew up. I want to be like, when I was growing up, Oscar De La Hoya was like the poster child especially for the Latino community. Because before Oscar, I was looking up at Tyson, Ali, Leonard. Those were the guys. I don't get into they don't look like me. I didn't see that. I just saw people that were basically, I could be like, doesn't matter about. Yes, Oscar De La Hoya he looks more like me, but I don't want to throw that out, because we're all people, we're all human, I say we're all the same race, same species, whatever. It doesn't matter what complexion you are, what religion you are, where you come from. We're all the same. We're all built the same. We all bleed red. So I just saw people that I could grow up to be, that were basically, they were in poor, broken down neighborhoods and poor families, that kids came out and made something for themselves in boxing. I come from a low income family. It wasn't like we weren't rich, but my life was very strict with staying disciplined, going to school, going home, going to the gym, going back home. And that was basically the discipline I tried to intervene with a lot of kids I trained. And then me teaching people out of those type of neighborhoods, because I was training at Tengus at one time. I was training kids more that were more financially not in the best circumstances, but I also train people like in upper neighborhood like Woodland Hills, Agora, Westlake. So you see the difference that those kids, they're trying to prove something different to you. You know, it doesn't matter what religion, what race, whatever. It's just I'm just saying the suburb between the hood or the neighborhood, whatever you want to call it. They're willing to prove to you. The only thing is culturally, their parents don't want them involved in this because they think it's violent. Or you want to use your brain to do something better. And in the hood, you want to call it, you want to use your hands. You know, it's the pride and machismo. But sometimes the kids, especially what I see nowadays, the kids are too comfortable. Comfortability is something that I think is bringing society down because they just think that everything is up to par. You know, people get comfortable with whatever they have. The only way they want to do something different is just to be, if it's not something they could do like positively like in sports, or you could be educated like yourself, or they gotta do something criminally like rappers, you know how like how culturally the music and everything throws out there. They want them to be something to live a life dangerously. So it's different. Everybody's different. Everybody takes the surroundings very different. So boxing, I think for me was the best way to grow and teach these kids in another path. Doesn't mean they gotta be fighters, but if they do, maybe we could do something that could be a lot greater than just be a fighter, be a better person. Hey, Ali could be a big example.
Why did you decide to transition from being a fighter to a trainer? And how do you think your philosophy changed from when you were a fighter and then becoming a trainer?
How my philosophies changed as a fighter to becoming a trainer. I think as a fighter, they keep you very blinded, and they don't explain to you what you're getting involved in. You just don't know. It's like you know, I think boxing and the music industry is very similar. You give a guy $100,000 just to sign him, and then the manager controls your life, and then he's taking more of the cut than you are as a fighter. You think you're living the life because you just made all this money, but then all of a sudden like oh you go to the manager like Carlos, you're my manager. You gotta need some money because I'm broke. I'm broke. You know, I just paid for all this, and then they're giving you pennies while you're making dollars. They're making dollars, so so that's as fighters, as training people. I think when I started training fighters, and I'm not talking about professional because the professional were already established when I got involved. When I started working with Joe Goosen as an assistant. Because I used to be a sparring partner for John Molina for like a year maybe, over a year. Because I was getting older, I was getting heavier, and I needed to make money because at the time I was not really able to provide for myself like I was before when I left that other job and the other gym I helped open. So my philosophy has changed. Like it's many variables to it because you gotta really put in your life on the line. And when I say your life, I'm not saying you can't get hurt, you can't get killed. I'm not saying, but removing those versions is that's a very minimal thing that can happen. But when I say change your life, it's just now it's financial. Like now the more primal part of you comes out. Even as a trainer, you have to be more like the things I know now as a trainer. I wish I knew as a fighter. That's the thing. I'm like totally two people. I'm totally two different people. I'm not that kid. I'm not even that young adult as a fighter. I'm not that same person. But yeah, I was still too nice. I was still too Okay, let's do this. Okay, yeah, come on, let's do it. Now I'm like, there's no time because time is a virtue. Like one of my trainers that trained me as a kid, Robert, tell me, George, you gotta worry about this. I got more, I got more life behind me than I have in front of me. So you gotta look at that. Now you start looking at it very differently when you get put in those perspectives. Like I said, boxing is philosophy. You start learning, you become more philosophically in tuned with life. So so those are things that I take serious. Like this could be a, a, a change maker in many ways, in a good or bad. Because you remember this, you're fighting primarily for survival. I'm not saying survival. You're not surviving. You're somewhat surviving. Especially if you go 100 years ago, people were basically making very minimal money. They're fighting during the Great Depression. Fighters were fighting every week, so they were fighting to live. And the ones that were fighting were, a lot of them were Jewish. Your Jewish fighters fighting nowadays. You don't. They run corporate America, so you already know that. So, but they were, because they had to make a living, so that was their bread and butter. There was a job every weekend. They had to make a paycheck, so they were fighting every week. That's the reason fighters were having 100, 200, 300 fights, professional fights. So now it's more subtle, not as much as in tune as more in tune now, but still, your chemical imbalance, you getting hit, how you take care of yourself, how you eat, all that takes a toll into your body. It's like for example, if you have a Ferrari, you're not gonna put any cheap gas on it. You gotta put the right gas. So that's the same thing you gotta look at as a fighter. You gotta feed them correctly. You have to, because that also chemically, in my opinion, changes a fighter, makes them look more, makes them, biologically, chemically, they enhances them more. It's like if you start drinking alcohol, it kind of throws things out. It kind of like diminishes you. So those are things that I know to a certain extent. I'm not saying I'm an expert to it, but you start seeing the differences.
As a trainer, when you get a prospective fighter, whether he's an amateur or he's a professional, how do you take that into account? What are the steps you take to try to make them successful?
To make them successful, oof, that's the magic word. Like, make them successful. You gotta have somebody that is willing to want it and willing to sacrifice for it. Because they just say, you have somebody who wants it, but he doesn't want to sacrifice. You have a guy that sacrifices a lot, but he's not really the guy, if you know what I mean. He's not the guy. So it's like, it's hard to basically see a lot of things, because you could have a guy who's very talented athlete, fighter, but he may not have the discipline and the dedication. You might have a guy that's very, very willing to give everything, but he may not have the physical talent, or he may not be marketable. It's just a lot of things that come into total. So you gotta make the best out of it, and I think moving a guy correctly, because in the beginning, and this is talking as a professional, it's a lot. It's a lot of variables, and then it's a lot of things that it's not as simple as people think it is. You might look at somebody, oh yeah, this guy can have it. He has the look, but you might be lanky and herky jerky, and you're not really like in tune with your distance. But you might have a guy who's physically, he's in tune, he has the fight, but he's too small. Nobody cares about the smaller weights. And that's where I come from. But also, I'm putting myself in the conversation. One thing I wish I could have changed in me, like I put the killer in me. May not have been too quickly, but I needed that person to put, George, to be a killer. You gotta be a fighter. You gotta be. But I was always trying to look cute, pretty as a fighter. That was my issue. My brother was more naturally a fighter. He wanted to fight. He wanted to knock you. He wanted to take your head off. But the difference between us two is that I was very disciplined. He was. I'm not saying he was disciplined when he needed, but it was hard for him to stay in discipline. Like he would fall out, gain the weight. Well, I was always in the gym, but maybe mentally, I was not that killer. Like I was trying to look the part. I was more worried about being the part, looking the part, not being the part. You know what I mean? So that's probably was my problem. Now that I look, and I wish I would have known that back then. Now that I see my, I look into myself, and I'm like, wow, I wish I was this kid's age. I could do this, and this different. But unfortunately, maybe it wasn't meant to be. I mean, now it's up to me. It's up to me to pass that torch because I had a lot of great people like teaching me, talking to me about boxing. That I still talk to this day that boxing is something that they love, but they won't change certain things that is going on now. I know people that are not involved in boxing. They love the training, they like teaching, but they're not involved in the business because they don't want to be involved with the business because they don't like how fighters have been in tune nowadays. So that's probably the only thing. And I still talk to them. You know, I'm still involved. Not as deep as I wanted. There was a time that I was trying to rush things. I wanted things. I'm like, let's make things happen. But I had other people holding me back. Like, you know, I opened up this gym. I had a business partner. They were happy when the money was coming in, but the minute things started going south, they wanted me to stay tuned. Being locked in prison, that's how I felt. But owning a boxing gym, you don't get credibility by just owning a gym. Anybody can own a gym. You can open a gym. She can open a gym. Anybody can open a gym. You know, so you can learn how to throw 1-2 hook right hand and say, "Oh yeah, I'm opening gyms." You know, I know all the deep people. Go ahead. But when it comes to really dialing into this with fighters and this is removing the business part of clientele. It's a lot. Just with one person. Now, let's go back when I had a business partner. He said, "Why are you focusing?" When I was focusing on one kid who won the national silver gloves, he won the national junior Olympics. I had to go to another state for a week, and then me and him were arguing about who's going to take care. Why are you focusing on one kid when you got 30, 40 people to worry about? You got to worry about your clientele, not just one kid, but this kid is the one that basically stamps us as a serious gym that we're training potential, training talent. People don't see it. People that do business. That's the reason I say it. This is a different type of business. Though you can't tell me business is business. It is business, but a different type of animal when it comes to business. So I had to focus on this kid, yes, because I was in battle with him how the gym was being run because I wasn't there. So that was the other issue with me. It's a glamour. It's great I'm not saying it's glamour. It's great to have your own gym, but there's other. You can become a prisoner to your own craft. So that's what I look at it. You become a prisoner. You know, you put out me as a trainer. You put personal lives aside, family aside. You know, I used to be married, so you know I put that relationship to the side and went downhill. I had a little relationship, but I'm married to this. I already made a choice. So, yeah.
What's your life been like on the corner, right? Like, do you ever feel like the responsibility? Like, how big is the responsibility of taking care of somebody in the corner? Like, when somebody goes in there, do you almost feel like their life is in your hands?
Yeah, your life is on it, especially if you care for the individual, because there's a lot of trainers that they train fighters. I don't think they're attached to them emotionally. I look at them like they're my own kids. I always, I feel like I'm a little of a nurturing guy, a little soft per se, but something you have to have the hard. You gotta be hard on the outside, but I'm a little emotional inside. So you have to basically know the person you're working with. That you have to be able to trust that he does everything that you worked on. Of course, you as a trainer, you gotta be on top of things, but it's a lot. Like it's like to say, if you're my fighter, I'm the trainer. We both have personal lives. So some people don't look if you, but I gotta swallow everything you do. You don't show up. You're not being disciplined. You're missing running, or you're kind of not coming in every day. So those are things that will hold you back. Can't hold you back. So that kind of I don't want to have that doubt when you're in that ring, especially if you're fighting professionally. You don't want to, especially when you're working with a professional fighter. Your reputation also is on the line because the way he performed is on you, and that's what people don't see. They just think you have a fighter, you make him get in shape, and that's it. No, there's more to it. This is brain surgery. Now that Robert has told me, this is brain surgery. To the point that now I see why the old school trainers are not. They will start you out. Let's say you're just a new person who wants to come to work out. But if you're that kid, he said, "Here's a rope. Do a jump rope." They won't look at you until they feel that you've been there for days, weeks, or even months. Just jumping rope. You haven't learned how to throw a punch. Okay, maybe this kid wants something. So how much? So now going back as a fighter, even amateur or pro, it's an amateur. It's still dangerous. You're a little more protected, but the rounds are quick. As a professional, it's a little different. It's more involved. You're more investing in stock. Your time is stock. Your time is money. Your time is your life. And you try to save your life, your time that you give it. Like these conversations we've had, is it an investment that I'm providing, or is it just a waste of time? So those are things that I look at. Like now you can't really waste your time. So now going with the fighter, every instant is gonna be dissected. Now that me and my associate are working with this fighter right now, we're talking consistently almost every day, talking on the phone 3-4 times a day, maybe even more, 10 times a day, and texting. So you've had those texts a few times. So, but with Rob, but yeah, it's something that it's more specific than you come to imagine. So you gotta be very, very in tune on what you're doing, because if you one slip up as a fighter, as a trainer, as a team that's working with a fighter, it's very, very I'm gonna say drastic, but it's very, very specific. So not to sound like dramatic, but it is, because it depends how you take it. Because you can look at it like, oh, George, but you just train a fighter, you're just getting him in shape. Yes, but you gotta understand this person. You're not doing it. You're not doing the work. Your work comes out of him. That's the thing. You gotta imagine the work comes out of a fighter. So you gotta really, really have him be in tune on what needs to come out. Because when it comes to that ring, it needs to come out in seconds, in milliseconds. Everything's gotta be in tune. And that's the reason I say now. I said earlier, like anybody could open up a gym, yes, but when it comes to that experience, being in the ring, being a trainer, being a fighter, being a former fighter, now managing a career, all that is a lot. You have your hands and different things that maybe I don't see people really speaking about it. You know, even this room has taken a little serious too now that we're talking about it because it's something that people do not look at seriously. They just think, I just get in shape. You're just trying to work out. That's it. Okay, keep thinking. But that's when I say the fitness world has ruined the sport because everybody's trying to proclaim, "Oh, I'm a good trainer. I know how to do mitts. I know how to do this." Yeah, anybody can do mitts. Anybody. I look at it. If I was categorized as a mitt man, I'm taking that as an insult. I'm sorry for all the mitt people out there, but that's how I look at it. I'm not trying to be a good mitt man. I'm trying to be a good teacher, a good trainer, a good philosopher in boxing. So, not to insult any mitt person or people that are motivators, because anybody could be a motivator, anybody could be a hype man in that corner, but you become the composer at the end of it all of a fighter that you want the best, and you as a trainer, you can be the hero, but as well you can become the villain. That's the whole thing I've noticed about the sport. That as a trainer, everything falls into you. You lose, it falls into you. You win, it don't really falls into you. It's the fighter that wins. That's the thing that I see in boxing a lot. And this is something that is very deep for us. Yeah.
You think as a trainer, you take all the blame, but you don't take the glory?
To a degree, I don't want to. You could say that, but I know a lot of trainers because I haven't really accomplished like a lot of trainers have accomplished, and now being on their side, I can see why a lot of trainers don't put up with a lot of stuff, a lot of things that people bring out because people don't understand that people could bring the best out of you or the worst out of you. In one way is that, like, if you bring a kid in here and you start doing the right thing, but then they start demanding you, oh, why are you not doing this with my kid, or you're not doing this. So especially if you're working with multiple kids, so that becomes something that is hard because how can I say it? You can't spread yourself out thin like that. So it's hard. And then you have, as a business owner, you got to worry about the bills. You got to worry about everything else that you personally have to worry about. So that's the thing. People don't really know that what trainers go through on surviving, living. So it's difficult to explain to a certain extent, but at the same time, it's very like you say, like we feel it right now. It's very deep, but at the same time, the other variables of making a person fight, and this is going very deep into a person. Like you have a kid's life on your hand. You're the person that he's got to really really trust, especially in that corner, because you're that voice. Sometimes you as a fighter, you only hear him, the trainer, the main guy, and that's the person that basically he wants the performance because that comes out of you. Your work as a trainer comes out of that person. So that's the reason now boxing now has changed because now you have too many people. You got the trainer, the strength conditioner, the strength conditioning coach, the manager, the et cetera, et cetera. So, how many people are involved in these fighters' lives that are in tune. That's the reason why in one fight when I was fighting, a couple of friends came and saw us. They came with us to a fight in Vegas, and my mentor Terry told us like, George, We fought. We didn't win. We both got draws, so it's not good. We fought on the promotion. What the hell were those two guys, man? What they came? They're your managers or what the hell? They came out of here like, and we're like, yeah. So those are things that you gotta be as a fighter. You gotta be careful because people would look at you or perceive you a certain type of way. You try to be. I think a fighter I think a fighter should be the most humblest. Be like, and my favorite movie is Gladiator. I think a fighter should be claim how Russell Crowe came in the movie. He is the man in the arena. That's the guy. Everybody else, yes, has a purpose, but at the end of it all, the glory is not on the trainer. The glory is on the fighter. Like, I'm not in the spotlight. He is. So all eyes are on him. So your work, everybody's involvement, if it's your investors, your trainers, your co-trainers, your managers, your co-managers, that are in boxing and are looking for the best out of you, is basically all that work that everybody does comes out of that person. But also you gotta understand, sometimes the fighters sabotage it. So, and I'm not saying we're trying to do that, but you know, fighters have also other demons that we don't. If everything could go perfect, you know, we're talking everything going perfectly, but as a fighter, sometimes you don't know what. You as a trainer, you're doing your job here. Now the other associates around you are trying to keep them intact, like how I do it. I have my co-trainer, I have my other trainer. We're always texting because now that's back then. I can imagine back in the day it was on phone call. Like, oh, yo, we gotta check on so and so. You know, we gotta work on Carlos. You know, hey, make sure that he's running. You know, he wakes up. Or you know, if you're and your girl were living together, hey, you gotta make sure that he's running. Pick him up, kick him out the bed. You know, all that. So that's a lot of things. Or I have to go front of your door, like knock at your door, like, hey, Carlos, we gotta go run 5 in the morning. Let's go. You know, that's the old school. And now, it's a lot of things. I think you probably heard stories like Robert Durant will go to Panama and get big, or it's a lot of stories. So you know, there's too many stories to talk about. But sometimes, how I explained earlier about what a fighter, what's the team working for, but also the fighter could be the sabotage, or something you can have. If you have different investors who are not invested in boxing, who do not know the boxing game, they want to sacrifice the fighter. So it's a lot of things. A lot of things. That's what we talk about. Is a lot of layers to this.
Yeah. You know, you talked a lot about nurturing and sometimes children who come here from more troubled neighborhoods. How do you think you've played a role in being the nurturer or teaching these young men how to be men?
Good question. Good question. To be men. I always say to be men. That's something that sometimes I can't give. I feel like I can't give it the definition because being a man as a provider, being this and that, sometimes it's been hard even in today's society to do things like that. So I just say you try to do the best, be a better person, be impactful in life, be a role model. I'm not going to mention names, but there's certain fighters out there that I don't think they're good role models today's days. I think right now, and I hate to put them out, you know, I think the biggest role model right now for me has like Anthony Joshua is one of them to a certain extent. I think Canelo is one of them. There's other fighters out there that I can't think on top of my head that are role models, but I think those two guys, they live a certain life that is not chaotic in the public's view. They're not doing things that is basically make them look bad. You know, you see fighters that basically have rough. They get a little crazy, like, you know, like I'm gonna say those are the two fighters that I kind of look up to because they're living the life of being men, being providers. They have a team. They have the same team around them. And Canelo does. They have the same team around him. He's had the same trainer, the same So that's something I look up to Canelo, and I know the stories of they talked about him like changing trainers to get better, change the people, but he stayed with the same people. If you're not, if it's not, if you grow with the same people you want to grow with, you stay with them. But today's age is just everybody wants to be. It's like I look at the karate. I look at like Bloodsport or all these martial art movies that they go from trainer to trainer. They're gonna learn this piece with this guy. That it's not that easy because the person that you're involved, the trainer could bring other people, other trainers like Oscar De La Hoya brought Emmanuel Stewart's. Even Julio Cesar Chavez, old trainer, he said he never worked with guys with mitts. Julio Cesar Chavez only used to hit the bag and spar. But then even Robert Garcia had that interview with somebody, and he said that he brought Emmanuel Stewart's, and Emmanuel that was the first person he worked. He brought somebody else adding a different element. That's the only thing I feel like trainers nowadays. That's where I'm trying to get involved. I have the trainers that maybe might be in tune more with the people I'm working with. If I'm not taking the lead training, because there'll be somebody else that they just say like I'm gonna use you as an example. They just say, well, with chemistry, yes, I might be the lead trainer, but they just say now. For some reason, you have more and you're more in tune with Juan. Whatever reason, they just say stylistically you like how he teaches certain things, so you might give. So of course I'm gonna let that happen because it's not for my sake, it's your sake. But the problem with trainers today, it's all about me. Everybody wants to get the glory. Yeah, but I'd rather have a job. so to be a man is just you got to be somebody that's gonna be. Somebody's gonna be very, very in tune with himself and somebody that is very invested in being a very respectful. You could say whatever religion, whatever. You could be spiritual. You could be a provider. You could be somebody that is basically grown and evolved in life. So to be a man it's everybody grows differently. So I can't really give that definition. So I'm gonna have to go back on that question.
I think I was just trying to get it, like, you being a nurturer, you're like trying to teach this, like, what are some things you try to teach them, right?
Mm-hmm.
What are some principles, some
the
things.
principles is to stay disciplined, to basically don't let other people misguide you. Meaning influences, like if you have friends, make sure your friends are basically growing with you. If it's financial aspect, that you're all making money together, and also that you don't want to be having friends that just basically wants to take you out to partying and drinking. That's not. I don't think those are friends. I think those are guys that try to hold you back. So that's one thing. You gotta have people that are willing to grow. Because the problem with society today is just everybody's trying to be the hip guy. I'm around this person or that person. That's the thing. It's not. I don't look at it as a popularity contest. I look at it as something that you got to be impactful and making a difference. I think that's a better definition I can say.
Okay. And as a trainer, from your point of view, you get somebody who doesn't know much about the sport, right? But they want to come to your gym. They want to train with you. What are something these people should know about boxing?
Well, things they should know about boxing. The first
Before
word is,
they come to you.
they
know nothing about
They
this.
know nothing about it. The first thing is listening. If you can listen, and you could, and I'm not gonna say that you gotta listen and do it perfectly right away, but if you have good listening skills, I think anything is possible. Anything is possible. That's the reason I use this philosophy. Say that's the reason you have 2 ears and one mouth. Speak less, listen more. Because today's society is as everybody thinks they know it all, and people don't like to listen. They just think just because they brought it a certain way, like they just say you came in when you started working with me. You came with a philosophy, different philosophy. Come in trying to fight differently, right? And I taught you differently, do it differently, right? Use your height, use your reach, but you never contradicted yourself and saying, "Oh, my coach, former coach." That's the thing is you gotta learn how to listen because I'm not trying to change how you are physically. Maybe your persona is I want to fight, I want to get in there, but also but I'm also teaching you how to use your weapons correctly in a better asset so you take less punishment, less adversity. You know, you want to make it easier for yourself. So that's the thing is just as long as you're able to listen, that's the biggest thing. Follow instructions, be disciplined, be consistent. I think those are the things because everybody wants to get good. How good really depends on all those forms, in my opinion.
All right, George. Well, thank you so much for guiding
Thank
us
you.
through your journey of being a coach and a trainer.
Thank
And
you.
we'll talk soon.
For
Thank
sure.
you, Coach.
Pleasure. Thank you.